Here I am on the side of the road. Bike's just started missing. I can do like 40 miles an hour, but as soon as I try to go higher, it's coughing and bucking and kicking and missing. So, on these old bikes, when you start having a problem, unless you have a major engine problem, there's only two things that can go wrong. One is the spark, and the first thing I did was try swapping out the ignition. And I'm going to show you how that's done on this old bike, okay? Alright, let's take a look here. See the ignition box right there? That's it. Now, see, I have it unplugged. Now, it used to be guys were always taking these things off, putting in high performance stuff, and there was boxes full of the used ones, and you could get them for free, and I've got a bunch of them. So I had one in the saddlebag. So what I did was, I unplugged it from this one, and I plugged in this spare one, and then dropped it in there, okay? For now. If this turned out to be the problem, I would swap them out. Now that's the ignition. There's not a computer, it's just an ignition. It's a different thing. It's not smart, it doesn't think. But that didn't fix it. So what I'm doing, so I'm thinking it's probably carburetor. So when I hit the gas on it, it sputs and sputters. Now there's a low speed, there's an idle jet screw thing. Then there's a low speed jet and there's a high speed. And it seemed to me when I got onto the high speed, something wasn't getting enough gas. And so I came over here. And I just took the front off the carburetor. And I pulled the bowl off. There's 4 little screws for that, okay? And I pulled out the main jet. Seemed to me like the main jet's clogged or something, right? Which doesn't seem right because, you know, there's really not dirt in my gas tank to clog it. But what I found out is something's in it. We're going to see if you can see it with this camera. Probably not. Let's see. Okay, you see something is stuck in the middle of it. The gas has to go through this hole. And something is obstructing it. And I don't know what. Okay, you see something's in there? I don't know what. But that's not supposed to have anything in it. Now the gas has to go through this hole. When you get into the throttle, it goes on to this one, and the gas goes through that hole, and I'm going to clean that out, put it back together. We're going to see if that fixes it. Because the ignition didn't do it. There ain't nothing else unless you have major engine failure. That's all there is. See if the spark's working. If it's not, figure out why and fix it. If it is working, come over to the carburetor, look at that. They're simple mechanisms. There's generally not too much that can go wrong with one. Fix that, unless it sits with gas in it. That's what kills them. Which of course mine doesn't. And then figure out why it ain't getting gas and fix that, and it should run. So we'll see if this fixes it. Well, I'm at the Panama City Motorcycle Rally, and I slept behind Randy's truck last night, as you can see. And cleaning out that jet fixed my problem. Okay, now I'm going to tell you guys how I diagnosed that symptom and fixed it on the side of the road easily. The first things I tried was the easy things, because it's like I said, there's only 2 things that can go wrong. Either the spark stopped working or the gas ain't working. That's it. There ain't nothing else. And both systems on this old bike are simple. So the first thing I did was plug in another ignition, just because it's easy. Eliminate the easy stuff, right? And the second thing, and that didn't fix it. And the second thing I did was I was down by half a tank. So I went and filled up the tank with good gas, just in case I got bad gas, which it probably wasn't, because when you get bad gas, usually it starts screwing up right away after you put it in, not when you're a half a tank down. So that didn't fix it. Okay, so the symptoms are I'm riding down the road, and as long as I hold the throttle open a little bit, it's fine. And if I get into it, as soon as I go past a certain point, it spits and sputters and can't run. Well, there's a couple things that could happen. One is if the gas isn't getting into the carburetor fast enough, you start running out of gas on the freeway. If the engine's using gas faster than it's getting to the carburetor. Now, all that is that's just a little hose that ain't very long, that comes from the gas tank, gravity fed. It's about that long down to the carburetor, okay? And so you have to figure out why the gas isn't coming in. Well, the symptoms of that are you're riding down the road and everything's going, it just goes, wah, runs out of gas. Then maybe it starts again, or maybe you pull over to the side of the road and you wait a few minutes and then it'll start again. Well, what's happening is the motor's using the gas faster than it's getting to the carburetor. This can happen from having your float bowl set too low. Will cause that. Your float bowl set too low. Well, I wasn't having that problem. This problem was it worked at low RPMs and a little bit and into the RPMs, but as soon as I got over it, started sputting and sputtering, and when I went back down, it ran okay. So I figured there's 3 circuits in the carburetor. One is the idle jet that works at idle. That was obviously working. The second one is the pilot jet that works at just off of idle. That seemed to be working. But then when I got into the main jet, then's when it wasn't working. So my next thought was I have a plugged up main jet, which was strange. That's usually done by dirt, and there wasn't any dirt in the carburetor. There's just one little piece of junk inside of that jet. So I pulled the jet out and just blew through it, cleaned it out, put it back on. That fixed it. Now, I've made a video on carburetors, on these carburetors and how they work. And I made it in such a way that anybody can understand it. I want to make it like I say in it so an accountant can understand it, and you can. I make it idiot proof. And I'll leave you guys a link to that either in one of them little boxes here or in the description to that video if you want to learn and know how carburetors work, and you'll understand why I diagnosed it as the main jet. Okay? So rather than being on the side of the road and having to call a tow truck and having to get a hotel and get it into the shop and wait for however long it takes them to get to it or whatever, I just fixed it on the side of the road, which took 15 minutes probably. But I had to make the diagnosis first. And that's how I did it. There's only these 2 things. If you go over, when one of these old bikes quits working, you go over, pull the spark plug, set it on the cylinder, turn it over and see if it's sparking. If it's sparking, you go to the carburetor and begin to ask yourself, why is it not getting gas? And you start looking at that. And that's a very simple mechanism, actually. And they seldom have problems, really, unless they sit with gasoline in them. They can't do that. If you're going to leave the bike sitting, you need to drain the carburetor. It's not hard. There's a screw on the bottom of almost every carburetor. If you look right on the bottom of the float bowl, you turn that and it opens it up, it drains it. So you turn the gas off and drain the carburetor if it's going to sit for even a month or so, and you'll almost never have carburetor problems. And under average use, you probably never will. But you got to drain the gas when it sits. So with that, that's how I diagnosed it. That's how I got it fixed. And as soon as I blew that little piece of crap out of there, it just blazed right on down here like it always does. And with that, you guys, I'll see you all on the next video.